Hey guys, welcome back to the last video of this playlist in which we will essentially just implement the chat screen and the ability to create our own channels. On one hand, so we can see if we click on a channel, then you can see we obviously have that chat screen here. We can send some messages, hi, and then they will get sent into this channel. And we can do that obviously for each of these channels. And then we'll also be able to create our own channels here by clicking on this icon, choosing a channel name, new channel, clicking create. Because we're a guest user, this doesn't automatically update the list here. Only the real authenticated users get these instant updates. So in a real app that would not be a problem, but for the guest users there are some performance issues. I actually talked with someone from Stream about that. So that's not a bug, just that you know. We can simply minimize the app and get into it again, and there's our new channel, and then we can send something in there. Hi guys. So that is what we're going to do in this video. I will start with a channel fragment so that we can actually see the chat messages, and for that I will create another package in our UI package called chat, and then a chat fragment in that. And that won't even need a view model here. Chat fragment, and that will, as our other fragments, inherit from binding fragment. And we take our fragment chat binding here. And our binding inflator that we need to override here will then return fragment chat binding inflate. Let's also annotate this with Android entry point. I think we don't even need this because we don't have a view model in here that we inject. But let's keep it. Then on view created as usual. And in here, let's think about what we need to do in the chat fragment once we open this. So we obviously open this once we click on a specific channel in the channel fragment. On the one hand, we of course need to know which messages should we actually load. So which messages for which chat, for which channel. And because we can't know that in this chat fragment, we need to pass that as a navigation argument from the channel fragment. So once we click on an item, we just simply pass the corresponding item, or item ID rather, the chat ID, to this fragment. And then in here we can just load the corresponding entries for that specific channel. So let's do that in our navigation graph, here our main nav graph. Let's put these a little bit over here, and we simply add a new destination, which is our chat fragment. We want to be able to navigate from our channel fragment to our chat fragment. And then we can click on chat fragment because, as I said, we want to add an argument. We want to pass the chat, or I think it's channel ID, to that chat fragment. We open this arguments block, click on plus, call this, let's call it channel ID. And for the type, we simply select string. It won't be nullable, and also there won't be any default value, so let's click add. That added the argument. We now need to rebuild our project. Go to build, rebuild project, because navigation component will actually just generate some classes behind the scenes for us that provide the navigation arguments for us in our chat fragment. So when that is done after a few hours, we can simply go back to chat fragment. And here it doesn't know my binding, so I need to rebuild again, and I will see you afterwards. Okay, so to actually get an instance of our arguments, we use private val args of type chat fragment arguments, that was the generated class here, by nav args. So that will give us the arguments we pass to this chat fragment, and then we can use these to create a view model factory again. We already did this in our channel fragment with the channel list view model factory, and now we will do the same with the message list view model factory, and that just needs the channel ID. It should load the messages for us. So val message list view model factory is equal to message list view model factory. And you can see that takes the CID, which is the channel ID. Here we can now just pass arguments.channel ID. And with that viewModel factory, we can initialize a bunch of view models. So just as we had here in our channel fragment, for each of these views that come from stream, we want to have a view model that basically controls these views and contains the business logic. We want to do the same for our chat fragment. Here we have 3 views that come from stream. So we simply create a view model for each of these. Here in our chat fragment, we want to have a view model for the message list header. So message list header view model. That is of type message lists header view model by view models. And that will take the factory we created. Let's just call it factory. And pass it here. Like this. Then we do the same for the message list. Message list view model. And pass our same factory here. And finally we have our message input view, I think it's called. Message input view model. This one. By view models. And that also needs to know the current channel ID, so it knows where to send these messages actually. So we pass our factory. And then just as on the last video, we need to bind these view models to the corresponding views. So message list header view model dot bind view. We want to bind it to our binding dot our header view. And as a lifecycle owner, we pass the view lifecycle owner. Same for the message lists. Message list view model. Binding message list view. View lifecycle owner. And message input view model. Like this. And now one thing we need to take care of, if we take a look here, in stream we have so-called thread replies, so we can reply to a specific message and that won't appear in the big pool of all messages. So let's take an example here. If we long click on this message, we can make a thread reply. If we do this, then we can write something here, hi, send that, and that is now added as a reply to this message. So if we click back now, you can see it added as a thread reply, and we don't see it here in the whole channel. So if we write hi here, without making it a thread reply, it will normally appear. But if we want to see all replies to this message, we can simply click thread reply, and there we go. And there are just 2 different modes in this in each channel. Either we display the thread reply like we do now, and we don't see anything else, or we simply display the channel messages like we do now, and we don't see the thread replies. So there is the thread mode and the normal mode. This is normal, and the other one, the thread mode. And we need to observe when that changes. So once we actually get into this thread reply mode, we need to swap out the list. And that is what we do next. We can get this state from our message list view model, which is called mode. And you can see that's just a live data object that gives us such a mode. And we can observe that passing our view lifecycle owner. And here this now gives us the mode. So if it's a normal mode or the thread reply mode, we can check that. If it is thread, which one is it? This one here, the thread from message list view model. We just want to update our message input view and our message header view, so it basically displays the correct information. So message list header view model, set active thread, and here we say mode.parent message. And also the same for message input. And if we get the normal state here, this one. Then we just want to reset that. So message list header view model, reset thread. And the same for the input view model. So that just makes sure that we update the information accordingly. Next up, I want to set up the functionality to be able to edit messages. That's also possible here when we long click on an item, click edit message, then you can see the message actually gets added to the input view. And because we somehow need to communicate between our message list and our message input, we need to write some code for that. So if we edit this, hi, what's up, hit send, then you can see it's just edited. And we can easily do that using our message list view. Let's do binding message list view, set message edit handler. And here we can just say message input view model ; post message to edit. So that will just make sure that our message list view and our message input view is actually correctly connected, so that when we long click on an item somewhere here, then the message input view model, or message input view rather, will open as it should with the message displaying. And the last thing we need to do for this chat fragment is the option to be able to navigate back. So we have this back arrow here, and we of course want to be able to navigate back. By default, that's not implemented because we need to override the back pressed handler of our activity, and Stream can't do that. And we also want to use navigation component for that. So what we will do is we take our message list view model and we observe the state here, view lifecycle owner. And if this state is navigate up, so that will be true once we click on the back button here. Then we simply want to say find nav controller .navigate up. And then what we also need to do is we want to have a back handler, which is just a kernel lambda function. And in that function, we want to send an event, basically message list view model .on event. And here we send the back button press event. So that is what we do when we actually click on that back arrow. Then we send an event to our message list view model, and then we can add this listener to our message list header view because the back button is located there. Set back button click listener. Here we pass the back handler, and we say require activity on back press dispatcher, so that really now overrides the back pressed stuff for our activity. And we want to add a callback. The lifecycle owner is our view lifecycle owner again. And need to import that, yes. And here we just execute our back handler. And that is it for this chat fragment. The next step is to implement the create channel dialog, that we can create channels, which is a little bit easier than this chat fragment. But first of all, we want to create the corresponding function for that in our channel view model to actually be able to create a channel server side. So function create channel. That will take a channel name that we enter in the dialog. We again want to trim the channel name, trimmed channel name, as we did with the username. Then we check if trim channel name is empty. We just return here. I don't do any validation here in that dialog. Feel free to do that. But in this case, it will just close the dialog and not create the channel. And then we can just launch a coroutine in view model scope. We can say val result is equal to client.channel. And here we can give this a channel type, which is, as always here, messaging. And a channel ID, which I will just randomly generate here. UUID, random UUID.toString. And then with the channel that we defined, we want to create that. You can see that again returns a call. on which we can call await, but we want to add some extra data here in form of a map that just allows us to give this channel a name, so the ID is not the name. So we say map of name to trim channel name. And you could also possibly do something, I think it's called image, not too sure here, but you could do image to specific image URL to simply give this channel an image. I won't do this here, so I will just hit await here, and then we can just check, as we did for our username, if the result is an error. We want to return all of this, and we want to send an error event in a channel, in a shared flow that we will create. Create channel event. Create channel event. That is a C class I will create here. Scrolling down. Like this. And this either takes an error or success. Like this. So we can either send one of these two events in our channel, in our shared flow again, and we will make a public version that we expose. I explained that in the previous video. As shared flow, like this. So then we can send events into this channel. If we get an error here, we emit our error class here from our create channel event, and we pass results error.message, and if that's null, unknown error. Let's do it like this. And if that's not an error, we simply send an success event. And that is it for the channel. We could actually also send an error here. Let's do that. Simply launch a coroutine. I'll simply put this in the view model scope. Return at launch. And then we would simply create channel event, emit not this error, this one. And I'll just hardcode something here. The channel name can't be empty. And that's it for our view model. So we just trim the channel name, we check if it's not empty, or if it's empty we return. We create the channel with this call, and then we check what's the result. Next up, we want to go to our channel package and create another Kotlin class, which will be the create channel dialog. And that's going to be a dialog fragment. A dialog fragment, if you don't know, that is just a dialog, but internally it's a fragment. So that just makes it easier. We can navigate to it with navigation component. We can inject dependencies in it easily and stuff like that. So let's say Android entry point. And here we manually need to initialize our binding because the binding fragment is not a dialog fragment. So private var underscore binding, make it nullable first. Fragment dialog binding. How is it called? No, it's dialog create channel. Dialog channel name binding it is actually. Make it nullable, null by default. And then we have a private val binding, which is also the same but not nullable. And in the getter we return binding double exclamation mark. So we can access this once we initialize this. And on destroy view we simply kill our binding again so we don't get a memory leak. Then let's get a reference to our view model. Our channel view model this time. And again, by activity view models, I explained that in the previous video, why we use an activity view model here, or I think I explained it in the previous video I did. We want to make sure to override onCreateView, because here we need to return the view that we inflated, and because we use view binding, we need to return the corresponding view here, which is just binding that root. But the most important function here in this dialog fragment is onCreateDialog. So we need to return the dialog that we want to show in this fragment here. Before we do this, we initialize our binding. Dialog channel name binding dot inflate, and we pass the layout inflator. And then what we return here is material alert dialog builder. Pass the context, and now we can build this dialog. Set title to r.string, import r, choose channel name it is. We set the view for that dialog to binding that root. We set the positive button, the string to r.string that create. And when we click on this, we can ignore these two parameters here. We want to create the channel, so we will use our view model and call create channel. The channel name will be binding et channel name.text.toString, so whatever we entered there. And we can set a negative button, r.string.cancel. Oops. Here we want a reference to the dialog interface, and the second one can be ignored because we want to cancel the dialog interface. And then simply call create, and that will build our dialog, and our dialog fragment is done. It's really that simple. And the very last step is to actually observe the events when we created a channel. So we will do that in our channel fragment. Down here, lifecycle scope, launch when started. And we want to use our view model, create channel event, collect. So we just collect all the events that the view model sends to us. When that event is of type error, from this create channel event here, and make sure to write is, then we just want to show toast. Create context, we enter the error message, toast.length long, that show. And if it's not an error, if it's successful, the success from the create channel event here, then let's also show toast. Instead of the error, we show, I think I already have a string resource, channel, import r, channel created, yes. So that is pretty much it. So if we just get an error here from the create channel event, we display the error, and else we display that we created the channel, and then we need to minimize and open the app again, because as I explained, for guest users that's a little bit tricky. For normal users it isn't. So in a real app that won't be an issue. One more thing I just realized is we also need to add unclick listeners to our channel items. When we click on that, we're going to pass the navigation argument with the channel ID to our channel chat fragment, and yeah, just be able to display the correct chat. Let's do that here. Binding channel list view, set channel channel item click listener. This gives us the channel here. So when we click on this, we simply want to navigate to the channel, find nav controller, navigate safely, r.id action channel fragment to chat fragment. And by the way, I also realized we need to add an unclick listener to the header view to open our dialog. Let's do this one first. We attach a bundle with our arguments. apply, and we put a string. The key is channel ID. The value is channel.cid. That should work. And then let's do the same here. For the header view, actually, set on action button click listener, which is the create channel button. Here we also just navigate safely. This time from channel, oh, we don't even have the direction yet. Let's go to main nav graph. Add a new fragment, choose our dialog, make sure it says dialog here, and rearrange this a bit. Take our channel fragment, drag it to create channel dialog, go back to channel fragment, and pass r.id action channel to create channel dialog. And that's it. We should be able to run our app. So there we go. Let's enter our username, log in, and there we go. It loads. If we click on a channel, then the channel opens. You can see that is how it's supposed to work. We can send messages here. That works. We can do thread replies. That works. If we click back, it shows the channel again. That looks good. If we click back, then we're navigating back. And let's create a channel. Make it the Kotlin channel. Create. Channel created. As I said, we need to reopen the app basically. And here is our new channel. Nice. So everything seems to work. So then this playlist is finished. Please let me know below if you liked it, if you like this little playlist. I really like the Stream SDK. It makes things so easy while still being able to customize things. So do check it out and use it for your own apps. As I said in the first video, they have the option, if you use it for hobby projects, to use it entirely free. And especially if you are not an expert for backend, then this makes sense to check it out if you want to make a chat app, because then you need to know close to nothing about backends. So yeah, let me know below if you like this playlist, and I hope I can see you in the next video again. I wish you an excellent day. Bye bye.